Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm not sure who you're asking.
Okay, perfect. No, I want to make sure I'm coming through okay. And if that's the case, then I'll mute.
Yes, I'm gonna go sit in your chair just to provide balance.
I just remember to put the rental into the drawer there when you finished, right?
All right, it just flipped over to 1 o'clock. So I will call the meeting to order. Attendance at the beginning of the meeting. Oh, you know what? I should probably get on Zoom so I can see my virtual council. But is everyone there?
No, actually, Counselor Jolly's not in yet.
Okay, so Romansky and Counselor Broadhead there.
That's correct.
All right, I'll just get onto the Zoom, but so that's attendance, everyone except Counselor Jolly. I have no additions to the agenda. Does anyone else? Seeing that, I will go to you, Counselor Mackay.
Oh, I didn't hit my request a motion button just in case another counselor on my left beat me to it. That the March 7th, 2023 agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote.
Do you want these typed in, Madam Mayor?
I think they like it typed. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm getting nods from the ladies.
Okay.
The meeting host will let me in soon. Who's the host? There we go. Thanks. All right, has everyone voted? Councilor Broadhead, is your vote in the chat?
It is now.
All right. Voting's closed, I'm assuming, and that is, I'm gonna guess, passes unanimously. We have no registered speakers today. So we're just gonna move on straight to consent agenda. Is there anyone who wants to read the consent agenda in? Councillor Killick, go ahead.
That the recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1 special city council meeting minutes of February 14th, 2023, and regular council meeting minutes of February 21, 2023. And 7.1 request for council motion from Community Service Advisory Committee, reoccurring community events grants, C/CS-02 grant allocations.
Excellent. I will call for the vote. That passes unanimously. Just let me turn my camera on. Was Sarah online with us? Sarah Vanderbilt?
No.
No, okay. Just was gonna thank her for joining, but she's not here. So that I will move on now. So we just approved on consent the minutes from our regular council meeting on February 21st and our special council meeting on February 14th. The long one. Now, we also just approved on consent a motion for a recurring events. So I'll read what was approved. So that the Community Service Advisory Committee recommend to council that the following applicants for the recurring community events grant program be awarded for 2023 and 24 as followed. So the K40 Club of St. Albert, they run our rodeo parade, was granted the amount of $7,000. And the Royal Canadian Legion of St. Albert Branch 271, they run obviously Remembrance Day ceremonies, and they were given $1,800 for a total of $8,800. Thank you, obviously, to both those groups for some good community events. And now we are on to our first business item. I see Ryan there. Is Todd with us too? There's Todd. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Let's get straight into the quarterly policing update. Q2 and Q3. So who's going to kick us off?
I can start. Can everybody hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. I'll start with the APP. So the packages you have there, I'm just sharing that for information. So let's provide a verbal update. So I'm currently in discussions with the St. Albert Policing Committee and the creation of the new annual performance plan. Most of the heavy lifting is already done as we're carrying forward the 3 priorities from the current plan, namely crime reduction, mental health and vulnerable communities, and domestic abuse. In consultation with the policing committee, we know we're on the right track in keeping these priorities front and center for the St. Albert RCMP. In support of this decision, I have some statistical data to share. As it applies to the Mental Health Act category, a 5-year comparable, we are up 58% for calls for service. That's a 5-year comparable, so 384 calls in 2018, and we're up to 605 in 2022. The 1-year comparable, we're only up 7%, but nonetheless, everything is trending upwards there. In the category of domestic abuse, again, a 5-year comparable, we're up 19%. Calls for service up 596 in 2018, up to 708 in 2022. The 1-year comparable is up slightly by 11%. So specific to the mental health and vulnerable communities, we are currently onboarding 2 initiatives launched recently by the Alberta provincial government. The first is the VODP, Virtual Opioid Dependency Program, which has been covered widely in the media as of recently. The other is called Health IM program, which is designated or designed to support frontline patrols response to subjects with unmanaged mental health challenges and/or substance abuse, with the purpose of promoting safety, improving crisis outcomes, and providing oversight and reporting. Health IM is essentially a digital crisis response system supporting improved emergency response to acute crisis situations. A quick verbal update from the RCMP Community Diversity Advisory Committee. We last met on February 21st, and the conversation is ongoing in regards to topics that impact minority groups and vulnerable communities within the city of St. Albert. Some of the topics and initiatives the committee has been working on include the Lighthouse program. So the Lighthouse program aims to fight against hate in the community and further afield by using technology to track the proliferation of hate symbols in our communities. So this was originally onboarded by the city of Edmonton, and we will be the first RCMP detachment in Alberta to pilot the program. So in areas of the city where there's a lot of tagging, graffiti, and that, this program will allow a user to take a photograph of that, upload it, and it will monitor trends in that area. Another program is called CAN Autism. So it's first responder training. Canucks Autism Network supports the first responder community by providing training that aims to increase confidence and improve effectiveness of responses while ultimately building more inclusive, supportive communities. And the last one is the Connect Protect program. So this program is a unique support service for 911 dispatch centers. It allows 911 dispatchers to access a subscriber's record directly, freeing frontline officers and other first responders to take action more quickly. Nearly 40% of Medic Alert's 24/7 hotline calls are for people who wander and go missing or need de-escalation support. This makes the Connect program ideal, or the Connect Protect program ideal for safeguarding loved ones with Alzheimer's or autism, and for those living with a medical condition that could require immediate and focused attention in an emergency. Like no other service, it can quickly reunite loved ones or get someone the precise medical attention that they need. So just some stuff that we're working on with the Diversity Advisory Committee. Quick HR update for everyone. The city is typically billed at a floating FTE rate of around 62 to 63 officers. Last quarter, the billing rate was 56 to 57. So we are running a bit lean on the general duty side of the house. That's the uniform side. This is due to a higher than normal soft vacancy rate. So the soft vacancy rate, as I think everyone will remember, is injury, illness, leave without pay for maternity and paternity leave. So operationally, we are augmenting our general duty with some of our members in the operational support units. So there will be no disruption in terms of service delivery. And I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but I expect there may be a slight budget surplus for the city at the end of the RCMP fiscal year, which is end of March, which I'm sure will be welcomed by administration. Happy to report that we just onboarded a new crime analyst. So she comes to the city with much experience and has hit the ground running. Our operational support units will be embedding her into our project-based enforcement initiatives, which will lend well to our intelligence-led policing. Lastly, Facebook training is taking place throughout the month of March here. Happy to report that the St. Albert detachment will be activating a Facebook account this spring with the hopes to improve community engagement by posting activities, events, and important announcements. So stay tuned on that front. Any questions?
All right, thank you so much, Ryan. Todd, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just have 3 items just to give you some a brief update on the police committee's work. Like the inspector said, we're working together for the annual policing plan. We're just about there. We just need to finalize and if there's anything to add, but we're pretty happy with the pillars that were established over the last year or two, and we're just going to continue on with those efforts and just make enhancements and present that when it is finalized. I hope to have the policing committee's annual report at the next visit with council, so the next quarter, so that will be presented. The third one is a big one that we've decided to do. We've decided to do a strategic planning to re-engage our committee on hearing from the residents of St. Albert. We are coming out of as everyone knows, a post-pandemic, and we feel it's just a great time to re-engage the committee and refocus to make sure we are moving forward with a positive plan and get everyone on the same page. And once that is done, I'll be more than happy to share our conversation and results with council through the council representative.
Awesome. Councillor Broadhead, I saw you clapping. Was that a hands up or was it clapping?
Well, it was, it could be both, but it was intended to be a hand up more than anything, but certainly want to, if you're turning the floor over to me for some questions, I'll start off with thanks for the presentation. I appreciate that. You know, one of the interesting things about being in another jurisdiction, I'm phoning in from Victoria here, is that in BC, they're considering legislation to protect people from the illicit publishing of intimate photographs. And the idea is to protect younger people, I guess, or anybody from exploitation. So my question to you, Ryan, is this one of the things, of course, is that it has to be reported, and there's a stigma associated with it. And so part of the problem is that the statistics coming forward probably don't reflect the actual, scope of the problem. So my question to you is this an issue in St. Albert? And if it is, where do you capture that particular statistic? And we may not have legislation yet. I'm hopeful that a province will look into such. But how do you help particularly young people who are victims of such exploitation like this?
Great question, Councillor Broadhead. I think it's important just to keep it as a topic of conversation and make sure that I think this problem is starting to surface in the schools. So youth being a vulnerable community within themselves is just making sure that we're having that conversation with community stakeholders. Some of our committees that have representatives from the schools and through our community policing victim services unit is just make sure that conversation is ongoing so that we can try and stay ahead of it as much as possible. But you're right, there is an issue with underreporting in these instances. So again, I think it's just making sure that we're keeping an eye on that, and I guess it would be the responsibility of the province or possibly the at the federal level to consider any legislative changes in regards to that type of activity. But I am hearing more of it. I am hearing more about it, and it's typically involves the youth and the community. So
yeah, it's you know what, and unfortunately, problems like this need to really balloon before the public gets a general sense that there's a problem because there's this stigma about reporting it because, but tragedy occurs. And then of course down here, a bigger population, that sort of thing, you hear about it more often, but no one wants to lose their child as a result of something, which is what has happened down here. But in any case, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Trust that, you know, if there's anything council could do, you'd let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. I will turn it over to you, Councillor Buckhey.
Yeah, a couple of questions, and I kind of already know the answer because I sit on the policing committee, but in relation to, and just for the benefit of the other members of council, Inspector Komiak, the staffing situation where you have to kind of shift the chairs on the deck a little bit in relation to making sure that you have operational response. Is that are we at any risk of any of our other programs that we offer into the community? I mean, because you're obviously having to take these members from maybe community serving roles and putting them into more of an operational role. So can you maybe provide the response in relation to that question or concern?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Yeah, it's not, we're not talking about multiple positions in multiple units. It's mainly, we're just projecting some shortages through the summer months, just with holidays and training commitments and so forth. So we will likely just rotate an officer through, you know, perhaps a 4 or 6 week period from one of the operational support units. So we have the ability to adapt to that, and I don't expect any form of disruptions there whatsoever.
Great. And I guess in the very beginning, in relation to when we were talking about the crime trends, particularly around seeing more mental health act calls and also more domestic violence calls, I know you referred to a couple of programs being rolled out, not directly associated to that, but do you have any specific initiatives around those two concerns in our community?
Well, we did discuss a few options that came up in discussion with the Diversity Advisory Committee. I mentioned the CAN Autism First Responder Training. It is a program that I'd mentioned to the policing committee at our last meeting. I believe that it was initially rolled out in the Lower Mainland, possibly Burnaby detachment. There's a lot more information to the CAN Autism program itself, but it is, my understanding is that it's a paced learning. So there's you sign up and there's, I think, 8 or 10 modules, and you can take the training virtually. Or if you've got a larger group where you wanna knock the training off quickly, they have instructors that can come out and deliver the program in a day or perhaps a 2-day session. So given the incident that we were involved with last fall up in Lacombe Park, it's something that's certainly on my radar. So CAN Autism looks like it would be a good fit for us specifically here. And I know that there's interest at both the district and division levels for this type of training as well. And then the Connect Protect program, again, is another program that we're talking about. The conversation is ongoing with the committee, and it looks like it might line up very nicely with our APP for mental health and vulnerable communities.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Killick.
Thank you, Inspector Chomiak. Just a question on, I think it's page 3 of your 6-page report. It had to do with provincial code traffic infractions or tickets, I guess, and I'm trying to follow the numbers from 2021 to 2022, the slight increase, and then it looks like at the last quarter of those months or years, they go up significantly. Like the numbers go from 1,300 up to 4,600. And that's a big jump, but the numbers don't track exactly from one year to the next. It's kind of a funny chart, the way it's laid out there, right? So just like to understand maybe why we're seeing that big increase in the provincial code traffic side of things. And maybe that's because of good policing. So that could be the simple answer.
No, it's not that simple, Councillor Killick. It's a lot has to do with our traffic unit itself. We ran that unit quite short for a period of time, quite a long period of time, with some soft vacancies. So once we got our all 6 officers in place there, and they started running more enforcement initiatives, those numbers increased significantly. And I believe that those stats also would include the municipal enforcement services. I'd have to check with Aaron Giesbrecht on that, but I believe that they were also dealing with some significant vacancies in that program. So I believe those are the two main drivers between those two numbers, but I can certainly get some additional details and confirmation for you on that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Your comments about vacancies kind of leads me to the next question, which was on the other slide, saying that we have budgeted 70 positions, but you're running with 57, and that you've got a number of members on leave. I guess the good news is that we're also seeing overtime willing to be worked by the members to cover. But the question, are we running the risk of burnout by having the members kind of, it's quite a significant number, 11 out of 70 on leave, and putting that workload on the other members, it drives up overtime. Totally fine with that, but that's a sign that we're burning out the existing members, asking them to work longer shifts. Is that a risk, and is there anything we can do about that in terms of attracting members to St. Albert, or is that just a factor of life, I guess, right now?
Well, those are all great questions, and those are things that we're certainly keeping a close eye on here. Health and wellness being at the forefront of our officers. The overtime is not exclusively worked, or I guess exhausted at the detachment level. We'll bring in, we can bring in officers from neighboring detachments to come in and work overtime. So it's not, I'm not overly concerned about that, but you do ask a good question and raise a good point. Somewhere in there is a balance between meeting your obligations, of your regular work schedule, and then you start adding overtime into that, and yeah, unless somebody's very conscious of their work-life balance, it could creep in. But I don't share any serious concerns there. Again, we're talking about a few positions over the course of the summer, and we have made some adjustments here locally to compensate for that.
Okay, thank you, and I guess thank you and the members for keeping our community safe and for working the overtime as required.
Councillor Bermansky, any questions from you?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Ryan.
Regina? Okay. All right, so no more questions. I'll let Councillor Mackay make the motion. He's already ready to go.
Yeah, no, I'm all ready to go. And that the St. Albert RCMP Municipal Policing Report Q2 2022/2023 and Report Q3 2022/2023 provided as attachments to the March 7th, 2023 council agenda report entitled Quarterly Policing Update, or CMP, get ready for it, Q2 and Q3 2022/2023 be received as information.
Thank you.
I think we'll have to work on the motions.
I'm assuming you have a few opening comments?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, thank you very much. All the work is very much appreciated. The previous comments and questions certainly do raise concern for the committee. I mean, these are questions that the committee brings to our detachment commander. And so I'm very confident that some of the concerns outlined are being addressed. But saying that, it's just always nice to get a report firsthand on some of the new initiatives that are perhaps coming into our community, and also gives us an opportunity to provide our support for our members, and I appreciate it very much. So that's all my comments.
Those were good comments. Anyone else? All right, thank you both for showing up and giving us this update. It's always appreciated. I have nothing further, so I'll just call for the vote, I guess. Voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. All right, thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, good times. Range Road 255 bridge funding. Give us the good news.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll cede the floor with your indulgence to Donnie George for any introductory remarks, and then I believe Faisal's available to walk us through this.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Madam Mayor, I have Dean and Faisal doing a short presentation for you.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. As noted, my name is Dean Schick. I'm the manager of transportation, and with me is Faisal Kanji, our infrastructure engineer. We don't really have a formal presentation, but thought it beneficial to perhaps maybe bring some graphics for council to make it a little bit easier to see the area we're talking about. Talk a little bit about some of the conflicts in the area and the rationale as to why we're asking for things. And then we'll open it up to discussion and questions. So I'll make effort here to share some video. Let me know. Can everyone see my screen?
We sure can. Yep.
Perfect. Fantastic. So as noted, the intent here is not to go through a long-winded presentation, deep sigh of relief from everyone on council from that side of things. But what we'll do is share this is a graphic that is highlighting just the overall projects that are in the northwest quadrant. So what we're looking at on the left-hand side, this is the general area. We see St. Albert Trail on the right-hand side of the graphic, the east side, Villeneuve Road on the south, and then this is Range Road 255, which this purple dot is the bridge structure, the Range Road 255 bridge, which is currently closed. And then these two dots are representing intersection improvements proposed for construction for the development of the Novu, which is on the northwest side of the Range Road 255 and Villeneuve Road intersection. And along Villeneuve Road, we have the project looking for advancement in 2023 for the Villeneuve Road improvements that will do the linear improvements of Villeneuve Road from the commercial site to the Denison Drive intersection, the roundabout that was constructed in 2022. In terms of the three projects noted, the areas, we wanted to highlight some of the conflict with these projects. Not so much direct conflict with the Villeneuve Phase 1B project. However, you can see just as a quick look, the bridge structure at the north end here is closed, and access then would be kind of through the south connecting to Villeneuve Road. If the two projects were to advance at the same time, you can see that this area becomes landlocked. The improvements to Hogan Road are anticipated to require full closures of the roadway. So with the intersection, it's currently a very tight rural cross section. So when we do these improvements and urbanize the section, which this work is being led, again, I just want to reiterate that this project is strata development to support, as per the development agreement, the improvements to Hogan Road and connectivity to the new Novu community neighborhood. And so that's their work that again is conditioned as part of their development agreement. And in doing this work and requiring the full closure, to which the bridge is existing and closed right now, so there is no northern access or connectivity to Township Road 544. This ultimately just puts into a graphic here to show why these projects can't occur at the same time, or we can't have the bridge closed. And that the objective here in our project would be is to, subject to council consideration and budget approval, would be to advance the work on the bridge structure as quickly as possible so as to allow residents access and connectivity to the north, and then a viable detour while this portion of Hogan Road is closed. I wanted to share as well what the planned programming of the RMR bridge program is. In 2023, so the scope of work is intent to perform condition assessments through our RMR project charter, bridge assessments, condition assessments, identify any remedial or major minor repairs, and then essentially perform maintenance on all existing structures. Hence, with the annexation and the Range Road 255 bridge that came into our asset inventory for bridge structures, why it became top priority when the failure occurred and is part of the RMR program. Its replacement is in line with the scope associated with our project charter and is high priority because of the current condition that it's in, where it's closed and not safe for public use, which creates disconnected network, as well as just possible conflicts in the area with future construction. So in 2023, our initial program, you can see Range Road 255 is highlighted red because it's emergent and in front of council for consideration to be added to the 2023 program. Whereas annually, we always want to, as part of our best practices for asset management, perform condition assessments. So that's, as you'll see, I can jump ahead and kind of show that that's a line item and action within every program every year. We have planned work to address substantial issues with the Perron Street Bridge, which again are structural in nature and safe for current side. Like, I don't want to cause alarm or anything, but the current state is that it is safe, but these repairs are necessary and a high priority. Similar, the St. Elmo Trail Bridge is requiring pretty substantial work and attention in 2023. And then we had planned advancing the Children's Bridge design work to address results of condition assessments and necessary repairs. From that work then, assuming we completed that work, 2024 would see the annual bridge assessments. There's network wide, so on a variety of different bridges, some remedial work, medium level repairs that maintain the structures to be open, but we'd be seeking to address those with funding in 2024. And then essentially from the completed design in 2023, address the Children's Bridge structure in 2024. And in 2025, again, annual bridge assessments, network wide now dropping from kind of that moderate level repairs to the less severe minor repairs, and then start to advance the Villeneuve Road Bridge repair design replacement. So that's our current plan program. And then I just wanted to share as well that the current status and schedule, should council approve budget funding for the Range Road 255 bridge. We've completed as of February 2023, we completed the Range Road 255 bridge design. In March and kind of end of February and through March, we have tendering. It has been tendered largely to advance and address, minimize and eliminate any potential delay. But the tendering is not a risk or liability in regards to the financial side because it's provisional to budget approval. So it does not lock council into an immediate response in terms of approving the budget, but it does put us in a good, strong position to advance the work subject to the budget approval. And in case any of you are like me, that you can't believe that it's March 7th already, we are here in front of you requesting the budget. And if subject to the budget approval, construction would be anticipated to begin in April with completion July of 2023, and thus the bridge opening in June, July. We're saying June, July because July is a little bit of contingency added into the schedule. We're aware of weather impacts and a possible delay or impacts with construction. So I'll stop sharing here and we'll turn it over for questions.
Okay. Mr. Schick, we should have had a drinking game of every time you said subject to budget approval.
I want to be very cautious. I don't, there's no pressure, no pressure at all.
Councillor Killick is first to the questions. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Dean, for the presentation, although that lime green, please don't use that again. It's impossible to read in your slide. The 1.3, what's your confidence level in that? You've already, I assume, talked to contractors to get that RFP issued, or I know I'm asking the question based on escalating inflation, crazy construction costs that we've seen. Is that a pretty confident number?
Absolutely, it is. For any further details, I might ask Faisal to jump in, as he's had direct review and comment and communication.
Yeah, I know sometimes we ask, when we get, these are class D, which is, plus or minus 50%. I'm just wondering if this is what our confidence level is on that.
I can respond to that through the chair, council. It is as confident as we can get. It's at our 100% estimate. So we have been in talks with both the two big procurements would be the concrete girders and the H piles. So those, we've been talking with suppliers and understanding their capacities. It's more a capacity than it is a price. So everyone is quite confident in the price. We're just looking to ensure we can get these materials procured sooner than later.
Okay. And just the relationship of where that bridge is in terms of future Fowler Way. It doesn't show up on the map, and I want to understand that when we rebuild that bridge, that it's built to a standard that whatever it connects to in Fowler Way, I'm not sure if Fowler Way is south of the bridge or north of the bridge, but will there be a connection point, and will that bridge last us into the future design and connection into Fowler Way? Has that been taken into consideration?
So because there's no direct conflict between the bridge and Fowler Way will be south of the bridge structure. The bridge itself is close to 3.5 kilometers north of Villeneuve Road, and Fowler Way is kind of looking at that west end, start to tie in and come south to connect to Ray Gibbon and transition into Ray Gibbon and Villeneuve. So we're quite a distance south of the bridge structure for Fowler Way, and so no direct conflict.
I can add that there is design considerations for expansion in the future. So it's not a design that can't be added to. There are limitations, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I just, want to make generally sure that we're building for the future, and any of those big capital projects will, last us as we grow. The other question, I guess, goes back, Dean, to those slides. It's not specific to this bridge structure, but it was Children's Bridge saying the word design and construction. And I must admit, I thought we were just resurfacing. Are we planning something more major for the Children's Bridge, or
maybe Faisal, can you share some of the details and scope?
Sure, absolutely. Through the chair, we're looking at the Children's Bridge in multiple aspects. One, because it's very sensitive over the water, so the immediate concern is resealing of that deck. So it's just a steel deck, so it just needs that protection layer. So the intent is to do that. While we're there, we would like to do a holistic upgrade. So it's just very small maintenance items. And so nothing grandiose. There has been discussion that I think is outside of this conversation of when we enter that, we were hoping to bring options for any stylized, if there was painting, because we might be looking at painting the railings. So there would be choice of paint and so items like that, more aesthetic side. But no, at the heart of it, just resealing the deck.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I just, that is a signature piece of architecture and engineering city would need to see it change substantially, improving it for sure, but not changing what it looked like. So thank you.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Okay, so Dean, when I hear this, it sounds to me, and you can tell me if I'm just not getting it right. Also ditto on the lime green color, like, I don't know what the slide said. Okay, let me get this straight. It sounds like we have to do the bridge because otherwise we can't do the other project for the repair. That's what it sounds like. Which I hate that because I feel like I'm being boxed into a decision. So we can say subject council and move approval all you want, but then I don't really see it as a yes or no vote if we can't do the other project. Is there any other way that that other project could be accomplished without like building another side area? Like, I just think of highways that have to get redone and it's one way in and out and they just do a small side jaunt to handle it during the construction and handle it otherwise. Have you considered that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we could go back. There is the option to come back to the developer and say that for them to advance their construction work, they would need to construct a temporary roadway linking Hogan Road 255 to Villeneuve Road. It's could be difficult because it may, the emphasis becomes the pressure onto the private developer to accommodate that because it's their construction, their improvements. They're required to do these improvements because of course it's a condition within their development agreement and whatnot. However, with continued development and plans of improvements in the area, we could see this coming back if Villeneuve Road has work occurring in the future and whatnot. It could be a case of the bridge can be left and then single access is maintained from the south to the south to Villeneuve Road and temporary access is provided. It gets the construction of Nauvoo completed, but then until the bridge is addressed, it ultimately means that there's an impact. Access is only solely from the south and whatnot. And so the one thing that we did do as well, and it wasn't necessarily shared, was that we did investigate some of the traffic volumes to see what the demand is. And it was interesting enough to see that it goes beyond just the direct residents of the area. So we kind of investigated traffic volumes from 2019 through 2022. On average, we're seeing anywhere from 700 to 1,000 vehicles a day on that road, on Range Road 255 north, in vicinity of the bridge area. So it wasn't just turning movements and potentially construction traffic to the Nauvoo area. We are well north of the construction site for development, and so trying to get a sense of what the impact would be to traffic on this roadway. And in that time frame, we saw a fairly significant traffic volume for that section. And the one thing as well is with the system we use now, we can see some of the information related to the traffic trip, the trips, and they go up to around like let me just see, I don't want to mess this up, that up to 25% are ranging from 50 to 100 kilometers away. So it's not just residents of the immediate area, they're actually using it as could be a bypass area from Highway 2 or whatnot, and connecting to 544 up to Highway 2 or whatever the case. So we saw that kind of influence and impact as well. But long-winded question to your immediate question, Councillor Hughes, is there could be alternative. It ultimately creates costs, throwaway costs, because we're talking about a temporary roadway, and it would be largely pushed then to the developer trying to accommodate traffic.
Okay, because one of the concerns, and so I'm hoping we'll just having this conversation with you, so I'm trying to read it out. So one of the concerns is just that this area really has not been developed. It's completely urban. And there is a reasonable possibility that when that area is developed, that the bridge would not be required in that location, but they'll realign all the roads and build something completely different with an ASP. So one of my concerns is that we're throwing away 1.3 million Because I realize there's throwaway for developer, but there's also throwaway for us if we're building something that's going to last 50 years, but we're only going to need it for 15 at best case scenario. So I just don't know where to go with that, because I mean, we're asking to talk into the future, but at the same time, I just am not confident that that's where the bridge is even going to be required. So not like, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but somebody did approach me and say that municipalities sell used bridges. I know, I had never heard of it before. And so I don't know if we've thought any other way to handle this, or if we've basically figured that the developers are going to work around the location of this bridge, and that's what would typically happen just because bridges are expensive. Or if there's a real possibility that we're putting money into something as a long-term investment, which is only going to be a short-term need.
I thank you, Councilor Hughes. I appreciate that question and the direction. And there's a couple of components to that yes, because of the potential environmental, I mean, the bridge structure exists today, and the environmental restrictions or considerations to try and relocate or deliver a bridge in a new area could have impacts. I mean, not to say that it couldn't be done, but there's additional costs and there's additional environmental considerations to think of another crossing. In our annexation work, we're going through the process now of investigating kind of planning a transportation network to deliver in the newly annexed area, in conjunction with the St. Albert West ASP, all of this work. And to date, the current alignment of Range Road 255 is in line in that area to utilize that existing bridge crossing. To your point, though, it is kind of for looking into the future, but for what we know to date and what the current planning documents exist, the bridge structure is not to be a short-term investment.
Okay, thank you. And the costs now, in the motion that was put here for the June 7th, it said the approval is 714,000. And it could just be me, but I really thought that we approved a higher amount. I thought that the repair was 700,000 and the replacement was like 1.2 million. I didn't go back and check the notes, but is that, it seems lower than what we said we were going to do. I thought that was just the repair number. I don't know if you.
I apologize. I don't phase. I know that in the replacement value,
Yeah.
Has been consistent with the 1.2. Is the 700,000?
I believe that's our 2023 approved budget for the bridge program that she may be referring to.
Okay, so that was just like not for this bridge. It was just for in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
sorry,
so
that 714,900 was approved in what I had shared earlier, Councilor Hughes, with regards to the plan program, the St. Albert Trail, Perron Street Bridge, and design work for the Children's Bridge with our annual condition assessments.
So the 714.9 is going to go to the other two projects, and we figure we can do those in budget, and then we need a 1.3 for this project, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, because it was a little confusing when I saw that number. I was like, I'm sure you came at 1.2 million before. It's been 3 months, but I tend to remember the traffic counts. The only thing I'm also wondering is that you said the 2019 to 2021, and I think there was a lot of construction that time occurring on that road north of it. So I'm just not sure how much we're attributing to that construction that may no longer be occurring, or if we're projecting that construction to continue medium term. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2019 beats the construction. If I may be out a little bit, but I believe construction on Township 544 had begun by the county in 2021, because it was a 2-year project, I believe, and they just finished it in 2022. So I think the 2021 traffic volumes could be 2019 would be not impacted with construction. 2021 could likely have, and 2022 as well. Yeah, and it's a case where traffic could have been pushed to Range Road 255, but it's ironically lower than not ironically, but it is actually the 2021, 2022 values are lower than what was the counted volumes in 2019.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one more question. So if, you know how you guys, and I don't know if you did this or not, but you know how we have that prioritization matrix for everything that comes before council for a budget? Had this been put into the matrix, would it still be coming forward to us today or for the, let's back it up 6 months? Would it still be coming forward for council for approval if it was being evaluated in the matrix? Did we look at that?
So that's a difficult question because typically our prioritization matrix is applied to growth, which if you were to ask me about growth, that would be it's beneficial for our development. It may have certain levels, service level improvements. But you know, it could be a priority in terms of council priority or a corporate priority, and aligned to a lot of different service improvements. However, RMR itself is a different beast that in regards to, of course, its priority, the bridge structure, it would be a priority in our mind because, you know, we're looking at a bridge structure that, albeit to some people, it may be perceived as low volume of connectivity and demand. At the volumes I suggested, it's not, I would say, low, but we're also not talking about, you know, the St. Albert Trail Bridge. Like if you to put apples to oranges, it's not at that level. But the fact of the matter is, it's a structure within our transportation network that supports connectivity, directly connects 544 to Villeneuve Road, services a multitude of users, and so it would be a priority in the grand scheme of things for us to invest in and repair, if not replace at our best.
Okay, so just so I'm trying to word this correctly so that I do it right. So I know that RMR is different than growth, but we also have like the Children's Bridge, in my opinion, could have been done 8 years ago, but it was delayed because of like, we only do so many bridges at one time or so much infrastructure in this category at one time. So with the RMR that we have, with just the list of things that are waiting to be addressed, would this still come to the top in the top 3?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, and the reason being is that the state of it is, the fact of the matter is it's closed. It's not publicly safe for use.
Right.
And we did, for council's awareness, we did investigate the opportunity to reprioritize some of the existing RMR programming, so that the program that I shared for the 2023 funds and the 2024. And unfortunately, it's a case where this Range Road 255 bridge is the ultimate priority. However, the state that both Prawn Street and St. Albert Trail bridges are in do not allow us the flexibility. It doesn't give us the confidence to suggest to council that they should be delayed or deferred. And so unfortunately, I would like nothing more than to say it's a simple reallocation of the existing approved funds. You know, these other projects may be acceptable for risk and liability from an engineering perspective to defer or delay. Unfortunately, I can't say that or recommend that.
You know, I'm happy that the Children's Bridge is going forward and that the other project for Parent Street or the St. Albert Trail Bridge is going forward. I was concerned when I saw that they might be deferred. So I understand that. One more question. So we have the alternate motion is to bring it forward as stabilization fund. And this may not be to you, it might be to Diane. It says alternate 1 could direct the project to an alternate source of funding such as stabilization reserve. So we have 9 million in the stabilization reserve. Is that correct? 9-ish? And how much do we have in the capital reserve unattributed right now?
I can, Anne can maybe jump on if she wants to correct, but I believe in the agenda report, it said the uncommitted within the capital reserve is 3 million right now.
Okay, 3, and then yeah, there I see it, sorry. But the stabilization has how much in it? I think it was close to 9 when we met last month, but stuff happens, man. You know, 9 million came in before we knew it, so I just don't know how much has gone out. Are we guessing?
I believe it's in and around that value. I haven't got the number right in front of me.
Okay, so the recommendation was to pay for it through capital. And I'm wondering, was that just because it was just a default, like this is the most natural option? Or how do you feel about the alternate motion to have it come out of stabilization? Is there like an issue at all that you would think of? Because I know that I think there's an email that we might be bringing that one on the table. So I just wanted to address it now.
I think either is an option. I think we always tend to want to go to the capital reserve when we're building capital projects, like the stabilization reserve initially, although it does allow within the policy for it to be used for capital, it is really intended for operating, for unanticipated operating.
Right.
And you know, the little capital piece was kind of added in with just within the last few years, but that was really never the intent of the stabilization fund. So we typically always recommend
Right.
capital fund.
Well, I know we bought a fire truck using it, so it's not like we can't do it. And this is an unexpected expense that came up fairly suddenly this fall. So I think it does still meet the criteria to put it that way, but nonetheless, we'll see what happens. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, I've still got more questions, Councillor Mackay, before I go to you. So I don't know who is first, but I'll go to you, Councillor Bermansky.
Thank you. I kept lowering and raising my hand because other people were asking the same questions I was going to. So sorry, Councillor Broadhead, if I jumped ahead of you. Question for you, Dean. What roadways, like, you know, you're saying there's 700 to 1,000 traffic volume that you're catering to, predominantly rural traffic. Which roadway are they using now? Because I mean, I haven't had any complaints from anybody that they're redirected, you know, a new pathway. So do you have any idea where that traffic's moving now?
No, unfortunately, I mean, to be quite honest, we would suspect that they're either, I mean, in the area, Range Road 260 to the west, or Highway 2. It would be the logical choices for the kind of a detour route in that area. Unfortunately, we'll get to that point where we can start to investigate what the trip patterns are from detours, but I didn't have access to that information at this time.
Okay, and then my other question is it sort of seems like we're doing the gold standard of a bridge in a rural place and you know, to the detriment of some of the things that we should be doing in the city. And again, we're catering to rural traffic. So why did we not do the repair instead of the rebuild?
Faisal, I may ask Faisal to jump in as infrastructure engineer.
Sure, through the chair, Mr. Bermansky, it's a cost of economy. So there's, at this point, the cost savings are, the material cost is fairly insignificant compared to the work being done. So the repairs, I believe we quoted at around 500,000-600,000 that still don't really achieve that level of service that we would have on all of our other bridges. So the intent here is that this bridge has reached its end of its service life. And so any repairs to it would be loss of gain, I guess, in that sense, that any new piles you'd be putting in, you might as well remove the old piles and replace with new ones that have that long-term life. In essence, you're really stabilizing the area for any future developments, future growth. We've looked at those solutions of, you know, if we wanted to add a lane on, what would be if the bridge design would be able to manage that. And so it's incorporating all those different aspects that kind of led us to replacement.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit torn on this one just because you're dedicated.
Sorry, I did want to add, this is by far not the gold standard. We're not planning on putting any extra features. There is no riding surface deck, like it's not an asphalt deck or a concrete deck. We're just having it as riding on the girders. So gravel again, we're not really changing any portions of the roadway for that sense. So I wouldn't have considered it a gold standard, but.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It looked like a little country bridge to me. So, okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my question is so what we're replacing this with now is a new structure. So is the structure substantially more robust, if you will, so that if heavier vehicles ride across it, we're not in the same boat, you know, 5 years from now?
Faisal, would you like to provide maybe some details in terms of the loading and?
Certainly, through the chair, Mr. Broadhead, the design is all classed through Alberta Transportation. So we use a design vehicle that would allow any sort of loading that we would suspect in this area. So it's not even what we would suspect, it's a standard that Alberta Transportation kind of governs, and we follow that governance. So this would achieve any loading that we would have on, for example, St. Albert Trail.
Okay, fair enough. And the reason why I ask, of course, is that we saw a water truck going across with gross vehicle weight of,
23
tons or
Yeah.
something like that. And the bridge was rated at 3. So I guess my question is that, if water trucks are there, they go there because there's a reason why they have to go up and down that road. And I'm not sure what that would be, but, they don't go down a road because that's the one that they choose to go down. I suspect there'll be water trucks going up and down that road in the future, maybe servicing the residents in that area. Is this a problem?
No, if I can, through the chair, there's agricultural vehicles, those water trucks. There's a few businesses in the area that we're aware of, and not at all. As I suggested, the loading is intended for quite a long design life. It's more where roads are designed through easels, I guess the multitude of repetition of that one vehicle. Bridges are more designed for that ultimate vehicle weight. And so none of these would be approaching that. The 3-ton rating was only due to the collapse of the one side of the bridge.
Okay.
If it was repaired, the loadings would go back up, but probably not to the functioning of a 40-year-old bridge or a 50-year-old bridge. So yeah.
I appreciate that clarification. That puts my heart at ease a little bit. I just didn't want to build a brand new bridge and have it break 5 years because of the wear and tear. So
no, absolutely. And I think that's something I can add to is that the girders on site performed well over that duration. And we are considering a similar design just with brand new materials and a better foundation. So the intent is that this type of issue wouldn't happen before the lifespan of the bridge.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's my question, Madam Mayor.
Oh, great. It's been Bridge 101 today. Learning a lot. I see no more questions, but Councillor Mackay is eager to put the motion on the floor, so go ahead.
Yeah, good bridge into that conversation.
Nice.
The budget for project 423414 RMR Bridge Program be increased by a total of 1,300,000, and that the increase be funded through the through the capital reserve. Sorry, put that in my mind, through the capital reserve.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Lots of great discussions, like you said, Bridge 101. I think I appreciate the responses from administration. Thank you, Dean. You look positively tanned. I think that this is just what we've talked about when this first came to our attention, brought forward by administration, that this is just an asset that we inherited from Sturgeon County as part of the annexation. It was interesting to me to notice the vehicle count numbers, but in retrospect, when I was thinking, a lot of probably residents of Sturgeon County use a shortcut of coming off 244 and then straight down either 255 or other roadways, just to kind of avoid some of what they perceive to be traffic congestion on St. Albert Trail. So yeah, the counts were actually a surprise to me, but also we have to remember that there is a business park just to the north as well. So I'm sure that a lot of our residents perhaps access the business park as well. So I appreciate all of the questions and comments. And to me, this is just part of our commitment to maintaining an asset that we now own.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
So I'd like to, I know you're probably not be friendly, Ken, and it's okay, I don't take it against you, to change it from capital to stabilization, and we can vote on it.
No, I want, you know what, I don't want to do it as a friendly and can explain why, but
I don't expect it to be friendly, because you brought forward your motion as you did, so I'm expecting that, but I'd love to have a vote on the stabilization versus capital.
Yep, well, I can argue why I don't want it to stabilize.
So Councillor Hughes is making a motion to amend by removing capital reserve and replacing with stabilization reserve. Correct. All right, I'll accept that. Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
Okay, so there's a couple reasons for this. The first, and I totally respect what Councillor Mackay has brought in so far, but we only have 3 million in the capital reserve, which in the world of capital reserves is really small. And so we're almost halving it, and I'm looking into next year's budget, and it's going to have impacts on our options for that. The stabilization reserve is topped out. It's the highest it's ever been, as far as I know, really, with the exception of when we had that huge top up for COVID, but that was an anomaly. And so we typically have had anywhere between 3 to 5 million in the stabilization. We've almost double that right now. So I think that we actually have a bit more wiggle room in that category. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is that, like, I realize that we often use it for ongoing operating, but we've also used it for surprise capital. For example, the fire truck for over 1.5 million as well. So this is an unexpected capital that came forward. It's certainly like this came forward in November, and now we're making a decision about this a few months later, once we have a few more details. I think it definitely would qualify for one-time surprise capital requirements, and this is within our policy. So I would just personally, I'd like to see the option for the capital fund to stay at where it is. It's only at 3 million, and normally we're rolling over $5 to $7 million. So I would like to have it so that next budget, we have a bit more opportunity to have more capital projects done that we don't typically do fund through the stabilization reserve at budget time. And that's why I think that if nothing else, we should have this discussion. But I think that we can afford to move it out of the stabilization reserve. And I think that the impact from the capital will be larger than what we're first estimating for our opportunities in just a few months. That's it.
Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit different perspective as to why, and I appreciate all of the comments in relation to why we have a stabilization reserve. But I mean, in reality, this goes to our whole intent of having a policy around specific reserves, and we've identified capital reserves, and that's kind of the reserve that we would use for this type of ongoing capital maintenance. I also one of the questions that arose during our budget surplus discussions was all of a sudden, like you identified, this is the highest that stabilization has been in your memory, and so certainly a while. And so it actually raised questions for me as to where and how come we got there, because as you remember, it wasn't more than a year ago that we were very afraid that we weren't going to have any money in the stabilization reserve. And all of a sudden, through good fiscal management on behalf of administration and maybe even some luck, we have 5.1 million brought in from our COVID and our MOST funding. So the fluidity of the stabilization reserves is there for exactly that, to deal with some of the fluid needs that are impacting our community. And I would say, let's just follow our policy around reserves. And we have the $3 million in the reserve specifically for this type of asset. So let's stick with that reserve. And my fear is believe me, I think in the next year and two, that stabilization reserve never seems to not get brought down and paid down. So my fear would be is we use 1.3 million off of the stabilization reserve, and then pretty soon we're right back into where we were a very short time ago, and we are looking at another significant challenge. So again, I will obviously abide by the vote, but I think let's just stick with capital reserve because that's where it's identified.
Thank you. I think Councillor Mackay said it well, just follow the policy. So we have money in the capital reserve. It's used for capital. This is capital. The stabilization has a broader scope that we can use money for. Could be capital, could be operations. If we need capital money in the future, we can use the stabilization reserve. But right now we don't need to. So I think we should take it from capital. Anything to close, Councillor Hughes?
Yep. Okay, so I just want to address a couple of things that were brought forward. So regarding the 9 to 0 to 9, back and forth. I think in part it was because we had those funds from the COVID relief, what do we call it, committed, but they were not spent. And so when we choose to release them, because we're no longer going to use that as a tax support, then we had that money. In the past, before the COVID crisis, financially, the stabilization reserve stayed around 3 to 5. And we even had a top up where it wasn't allowed to go over $4.5 or $5 million. It's only been in very recent times that's been increased to a substantially large number. So really the cushion had been half of what it was at a maximum amount that what it was today, what it is today. So with the exception of situation where we're kind of in limbo land almost for a couple of years, and that's what stabilization reserve was fluctuating so much, it has not just dropped like a up and down roller coaster. The other thing is that this is still within our policy. This is not violating any policy. The policy says you can use it for unexpected one-time capital projects. This was an unexpected one-time capital project. It came on our plate very quickly. Nobody knew it was coming. And so I realize that we can move back and forth between the two reserves. However, when staff is making plans, they make plans with, this is how much we have in capital. They don't make plans with, but we can take another 2.5 million out of stabilization so we can do something with it when they do the budget. So if we're going to allow the staff to actually evaluate things and bring things forward fairly, I don't want to bring it forward with the assumption that we may be moving money from the stabilization in future months. I want to say this is what we're going to do. And I think that we honestly, if we go through $7 million the next year in stabilization, we need to have other discussions. I just don't see that happening. So I realize that it's a big chunk of change, but I also realize that the consequences of this is that we're going to be doing things on the fly if we don't have enough money in the capital to handle the other needs that we have going forward. And meanwhile, we have $9 million in stabilization, and we've never needed more than 5 at any one time in there. So that's why I was suggesting that, but we'll see how the vote goes. Thank you.
Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that motion fails in a tie, sorry. With Mayor Herron, Councillor Broadhead, and Councillor Mackay opposed. Back to the main motion. Is there any further debate on this?
I don't have anything in relation to closing either, if there's no further.
Okay, I will call for the vote. Voting's closed, and that motion passes by majority with Councillor Bermansky opposed. All right, we had no emergent items. We have one council motion, which I'm excited to hear the conversation. So Councillor Killick, why don't you read your intended motion? I think you said the alternate.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll read both because they are intrinsically linked, and I had sent an email to administration and spoken with them to make sure that they have the alternative motion to part 2 of the motion, which was the recommendation put forward by administration. So first, that the 2023 budget be amended to remove the 337,000 funding for the project described as DARP 005 Millennium Park Design Phase 2 and construction. And the revised part for number 2 is that that up to 337,000 be funded to complete a council workshop and create a new concept plan for Millennium Park, including any necessary technical studies and public engagement.
All right, before I accept that, I'm going to just open it up to some questions. Do you have any to start with?
I don't have any questions. I don't know if administration is here to do a presentation of what they had proposed. But I think it was a pretty comprehensive backgrounder. So I personally don't have any questions.
Yeah, and administration doesn't normally do a presentation on a council motion. So I'll just open it up to anyone who has questions. Go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess question administration in relation to the alternative motion. So, and the idea would be that I think some of the concern that administration backgrounder identified is this would basically stop work. We wouldn't be able to continue with any type of work, and that any type of work in 2024 would be just not going to happen. So can I get an explanation then as to if this alternative motion passes, what the second part of the motion around this whole would, it's not going to take, we don't need $327,000 for a workshop. I hope not anyways. But I'm just kind of getting an idea of what this 327,000 or what that amount will be used for. Is it going to be used as part of the workshop? Is it going to be used as to begin some of the initial work of as identified in the concept plan? Can I get a better idea of what's happening?
Absolutely, Counselor. I'll defer to Amanda to talk, but bottom line is it's not a $370,000 workshop. To be clear, it's actually all of the planning and design work that would flow from that. Amanda.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, and through the chair to Councillor Mackay. We do not believe we need up to the full amount. That's why the motion does read up to $337,000. We were just trying to match the original funding request. The scope of work that we would suggest would be a council workshop to revision the site as suggested in the original motion. There are more technical studies that we would typically do that weren't done in the original concepts. We do more intensive environmental studies, tree assessments, geotechnical studies that weren't completed as part of the original concept plan. And then we'd move it through to a complete concept plan with public engagement as well. So the original project was originally budgeted around $350,000, about $245,000 was spent in the original process. So we do expect it to be somewhere in that same range, but without further investigation, we just decided to keep the budget numbers equivalent to what was originally approved to make it a little bit more seamless.
So refresh, I mean, your background was very clear in relation to timelines too. So the original millennial concept plan, or the one that's we approved back in 2018, that started in 2016 and went through a very robust public consultation process. Would the expectation be is that even in conjunction with a workshop provided to council, we would then go back to the community to reopen those consultations as to what the new vision is by council?
So it would be our intent, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Mackay, it would be our intent to explore the expectations around public engagement through the council workshops. We do anticipate doing the council workshop first. It is good practice when you have done public engagement and need to redo a project for any reason to at least recommunicate, if not re-engage those that provided their feedback. But certainly our intention would be to work through with council their desired level of participation and expectations for timelines and public participation in the new process for sure.
Thank you for the clarification. One more question. So the technical studies you referred to in relation to what would be the work that would be ongoing. So that's significantly different than potentially what's the concept plans identified now, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Mackay, we're not anticipating any surprises, but as Recreation and Parks, as we develop parks, we found it a really good practice to go in and do some of those geotechnical and environmental assessments early in the process, historic resources as well, because that allows you to modify your design before you get too far down the road. We find anywhere within the Sturgeon River Valley, and this is an area within the floodplain, our soil conditions can be quite variable. There is a chance that there is historic resources. So knowing those kind of things and identifying those constraints as we reconcept it helps us put those parameters and constraints really early into the process. So I will ask if Adrian wants to add anything regards to what was done in the original, and this would just be supplementary to what was done in the original concept plan. It just really helps inform and is required for detailed design anyways.
Was I waiting for Adrian? There.
Yeah. So, further to what Amanda said, so I guess, there would be a component of trying to understand what council's expectations would be. There was, as you're aware, extensive engagement. So if there is a scope change, then there would likely need to be some additional work done. And I just wanted to mention, Amanda had said that the park is in the floodplain. It's identified as floodplain protected by the berm. So just to clarify that up so that nobody gets too excited. We are aware that it's wet, down in the trees and so forth, but those conditions would not be changed with either design or any of the designs, I guess.
Okay, and just I guess I fibbed. I do have one more question based on the response. So in the backgrounder, and I appreciate the implications and risks of advancing proposed motions. Now, these 4 bullets that you've identified as a risk, are they still a risk with this alternative motion? So I mean, administrative resourcing, the perception of wasted public dollars, the previous public participation, and also the ability of moving together with the Lions Park rehabilitation.
Through the chair to Councillor Mackay, certainly some of those risks do carry forward regardless of the original or the alternate motion, just in that there has been an investment in public engagement completed already. So on redoing some of that work does carry some risk regardless of the approach. Having funding through the alternative motion does support administration in being able to effectively do this work, because then we can have consultant support, deliver the council workshop and things like that, and take some of that administrative burden from us. By moving forward the alternate motion, we would be able to more closely align with the Lions Park project and potentially any implications with the Children's Bridge as well. So it does alleviate some of the risk, but it doesn't eliminate all of the risks identified, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks. That's all my questions, Mayor.
Councillor Bermansky, go ahead.
Thank you, Fernanda. You did a lot of public engagement, but it's my understanding that you did a lot of changes from the original plan that was presented to public, and a lot of it was omitted due to cost factors. So how close is the design now actually to what the public would have viewed back in 2016?
I'll have to ask my colleague, Mr. Slot, to respond to that, as planning led that process.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bermansky. So we did actually, once we developed those first 4 concepts and then went to revision, we did bring that concept back to kind of the participants or to the public for further vetting and understanding of the new scope and design. It wasn't something that we just changed after the fact. We did for sure bring that back so that the public was aware. And it's very much in line with what the public did see as the last kind of approved version.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Hi, I just had one question. So when I look at the, what do you call it? Design, placemaking design concept, and I see some of the photos with, they did like colors and place things around with everybody. How come we never did that with council?
I was there.
That's 26.
But the thing is, I don't like to influence the public and their decision making. So we didn't do that with council. So what was the decision to not have a specific design with council? Because I think that that's the intention of this motion, is to do this now. And so was it just overlooked, or what was the thought process?
I don't know if anyone's even here.
Yeah, I
That-
apologize. I certainly.
Yeah, we hired
yeah,
the
no.
placemaking out, so they're not here, so.
No, but not the placemaking, but I mean, like, this is a very interactive, and we did this we had a workshop, and so recently for the community amenities site. So I'm just like, does that just not thought of at that time of, because that with the community amenities site, where that whole thing was a new thing. So I'm looking at you, Diane, because you were here at the time, but I have no one else to look at except for Luke, and he appears to also not have an answer.
Adrian.
Oh, is Adrian. So I'm just, was it just something that was just not brought forward as a discussion element, or what was?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hughes. So I have to dust off some cobwebs there if I remember right, but I I believe that our approach was, we had extensive engagement. I thought that council was made aware of those opportunities. We didn't do a standalone opportunity for council, but I believe that we tried to make councilors aware of those public engagement opportunities and those workshops. And as was mentioned, I think that there were attendees that did make it from council. We didn't have a standalone workshop to my recollection.
Yeah. Just as a suggestion going forward, when we have any of these major projects like this, it would be great if we could just have one specifically for council. Because one of my concerns at one of these public consultations is just, I don't want to influence the public's decision or have them think that my input is more important than other people's. So I really try to let that be a pure consultation process and not try to have an influence because of my presence. Especially if I go, I wouldn't actually provide any input because I want them to be able to say something and not think that I'm swaying anything that's coming into the final results. So having that specific council for any of the other projects like we did for the community men's site, I think would be useful. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting to hear the conversation. I mean, I think the original design plan came in at what was in the background, or $25 million. And then that was deemed to be way too expensive. So we went out to the public to hear what they would live with for substantially less money. And so we arrived at our current design, and now we're going to go forward. So I'm hoping that Councillor Killick will explain exactly what he wants with this particular motion and where it's going to drive, because the cost of this motion is a year. And so this has been in planning now for at least 10. And we were prepared to turn dirt, and now we're going to delay it yet again. I want what's best for our community, but we've been to the community and asked what they wanted. And substantially, they put in their thoughts in relation to the amount of budget that we had. Now, if the intent here is to suggest that, well, 10 million, we should spend $25 million again, that's a whole different story. And then for sure, we would require a new design process. But if we're only going to spend 10 again, then I'm wondering why we're going about this. So I'm hopeful that we'll have that explanation as it goes forward.
Any questions, Councillor Broadhead?
No, I'm waiting for the vision as to why we're doing this.
Okay, we're good. Amanda or Adrian, can you guys pull up this picture on the screen? I don't know if you have it, which is a current concept. This is what you can find on our website right now. No. Is it a meeting? Okay, yeah. Because I could show it here, just like that. I guess it's a question for Councillor Killick, because I think he and I have talked about this. We both have this very similar concerns. And if you look at this current concept, you have, there we go. Thanks. There we go. We have essentially 5 small parks instead of 1 big park. And Amanda, or Adrian, whoever, is the dotted line kind of outlining where it's wet, where we have the issue with the water?
Yeah. To Mayor Heron, yes, that's delineating wetlands.
Okay. So I Councillor Killick, you can correct me if I'm wrong. but the issue is not about recreating the concept. It's about opening up what we currently have in front of us. So there's trees that create a separate park between the provincial building and a row of trees. Like, why do those trees have to be there? And I do believe I heard that preservation of trees was important to the public, but I guess the concept looks like it's dividing it into 5 separate parks instead of trying to open it up. And the trail system could be closer to the river, or like, just, do we have to go through this whole process of a workshop? Or can we just try to, when we did the walk around, we kind of expressed that we'd like to see it opened up more. And is that recreating the wheel, or is that keeping the current concept, just opening it up a bit more? I guess that's my question. And I'll go to Mike, but I'll go to the staff first, and then I'll go to you, Mike. Yeah.
In response to Mayor Herron, we did intend to move the concept to preliminary design prior to doing any more detailed design work, with the intention of coming back potentially to council after the walkthrough. There is quite a bit of flexibility in a design process to make those types of modifications, as long as what we call the Big P program, or the general idea behind the site, kind of maintains the same, the big amenities, the function and the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. We can make those type of modifications within a detailed design process, and often do. It is whether this is fundamentally meeting council's expectations for what the space should achieve, that a new council workshop may support, or a new concept plan. But if fundamentally it is kind of achieving what we need, just needs tweaks and changes to scale, that could be accomplished within the existing process.
Okay. And so, Councillor Killick, I'll ask you the same question. Is it just about merging some of these smaller parks into a bigger one by the removal of maybe some trees and moving the sidewalk around, et cetera? Is that what your intention is?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for that. And I provided those comments back after our walk around as requested by administration in an email. And it really, I think, Amanda, I actually use the word tweaks in my email. So either that's serendipity or you have a very good memory. But the concept, what I did not want to do is number one, I do not want to stall the project. So as to address Councillor Broadhead's 10-year concern of design, I do not want to stall the project. And that's why I like the way we've worded it here, that we could get a workshop done and make some tweaks and still continue to move forward with concept design. To address Councillor Hughes's concern about and it was a risk identified in the backgrounder around public consultation. I definitely do not want to forget about all that public consultation. But again, the message may have got lost over 10 years. We may actually have suffered too much public consultation on this one, and we've kind of lost the vision of what Millennium Park really was to be. And it was in the backgrounder document, it said we want to make this a significant gathering place. We want to have it there as we grow to 100,000 people. We want to have a real anchor that draws people downtown to our DARP business revitalization. And the current concept that we have in front of us on the screen is really developing it, and I didn't do the math, but it's probably 1/6 of the total space that is actually being developed into a usable park. The rest is left with native trees that you can't walk through. You can't have a picnic table under and enjoy. You can't have an outdoor event and sit in those trees to get shade. You can't utilize it in the winter. It's basically left as old mixed brush area. So what I was hoping, and as I said in my email response several months ago, last year, was that we would open up that space and make it a real gathering place and a real signature park for all residents to enjoy. And I'm hoping, as a third point, as I said, I don't want to delay it. I don't want to forget about public consultation and input. But what I do want to achieve is something that is more open and inviting to a larger group and a group of people. And hoping to see that as a way that we can move this forward still in a timely fashion. The other thing I would note is that I going by memory here from reading the backgrounder, but the pavilion was not targeted to be built until 2029. There's a couple of years of I'm not exactly sure what concept design, maybe some landscaping, tree removal, and then we actually build the pavilion in 2029. In fact, I would love to see, to Councillor Broadhead's point around timing, I'd love to see that brought forward. So I'd like to have those discussions when we look at concept design as well, and really placement of that pavilion building to maximize this opportunity. I would want to, in my mind, it's kind of having an analogy of saying that you're going to buy a Miata, but you've suddenly found out your spouse is going to have twins, and you probably want to rethink that a two-seater sports car is probably not the thing you want to buy. So I'm hoping that could be accomplished with maybe more than the budgeted 10 million, but not certainly going up to back up to 25. But again, how do we move forward with a workshop, public consultation, come out with a better plan that we can still move forward? That's my overall objectives.
Council's never really played a role in detailed design, but Amanda, yeah, I feel like we could not even worry about your motion today and achieve what you want through the tweaking in detailed design. And then we don't have to worry about slowing anything down at all. So the placement of the pavilion is something that Councillor Killick just brought up. Is that determined already, or is that determined during the detailed design?
To you, Madam Mayor, the placement of the building, we do need to actually project, even though we're not in the current phasing addressing it within the 337,000, we do have to move that towards more of a preliminary design. So this is very high level. We need the geotechnical and things like that. So we would want to kind of cement where it's going through this phase of the detailed design so that we can bring servicing to the right place and to the right size and things like that. But at this point, it is not set in stone. And if I can just address Councillor Killick's comment around the phasing, that is something we had talked a little bit at the walkthrough in September. It is currently phased strictly to minimize the financial impact on the city at any one year. So the idea would be to bring it to a point where it is more functional than it is now for the existing events downtown, farmers markets, those type of events, add in the connectivity that is missing, get the servicing to the site, give folks a couple years to actually use it while we do design. But the phasing is strictly a financial, trying to spread out the financial impact because it is a significant investment and could absolutely be revisited. But I just wanted to provide some rationale there. It's strictly a financial thing, not a construction thing. The best thing to do, or certainly the most efficient thing to do, would be to do the entire site at once. The 337 is not sufficient to complete detailed design for any buildings or anything like that, however.
Okay. And currently, this might be a question for you, Diane, is it all funded? Like, none of this is taking on debt. That's why we're spreading it out over 5 or 6 years.
Through you, Mayor Heron, I don't think that had been sort of decided when we did the phasing out. I don't think, really the financing was looked at. I think at this point, we probably are considering, would have to consider debt financing. Certainly if we wanted to bring it forward and do a large portion at once, that would probably be our only option. If we kept a longer phasing, we could look at spreading out and saving some of our grants and cash dollars to be able to support it. But projects of that size are difficult to pay cash for.
Okay. Interesting that Amanda said it's more efficient if we do it all together. I don't know where you want to take this, Councillor Killick, because I feel like we can achieve what you want through the current process instead of changing process.
I'm, I guess I'm feeling on the other side of that, is that even through debate here today, and it's unclear as to what is actually meant by concept design. And we show a picture that a building is located in a certain space, but we hear, oh, but it could be moved. And then we hear, well, maybe not, because we have to know where the servicing goes. So I don't know whether through debate at council is the best way to achieve that. And thinking that we could have an offline discussion, kind of concept planning. That's what I had wanted to achieve. As I said, we've had multiple iterations of feedback from our walkthrough. We provided written feedback. We now have a plan, but I'm not sure how we actually say that. When I look at the picture, it says, but that still doesn't meet my expectations for a real anchor facility. And so I'm thinking that the workshop offline, where we could actually spend a couple hours and really understand this. This is a significant investment. We get one shot at doing it right. And I believe I'm prepared certainly to invest that time into that workshop, and then we can have a review of the public and have a better impact understanding of, is it going to impact the budget? How do we phase in the build? How do we address the old growth trees? How do we tie it in with Children's Bridge and Lion Park project? Those are all very detailed things that I'm not sure. I mean, we could probably do it at council, but we might be here a long time. And I had preferred to have this concept of a workshop to actually do that.
I have one more, and then I'll go to you, Councillor Hughes. Process-wise, Amanda, this detailed design that's funded right currently for 337,000, is that done in-house, or do we contract that out?
Madam Mayor, we do contract that out.
Okay, and so have you even written the RFP for that yet?
We do have the RFP drafted and have held it waiting on this conversation.
Mr. Fletcher, why could we not get this 7-member council together before the RFP goes out? Like in the next couple of weeks? Why do we have to wait to Q3?
I think it depends on the nature and the scale of the conversation you want to have. So this has been clarity for us too. I mean, some of the comments we heard involved a marked alteration to the picture that you've just seen, like significant, and that will take to Q3 to actually come up with new concept designs. If we're talking about variations on a theme, I think arguably we could come a little bit earlier than that to work off what's already exists.
I have a feeling both you and I just want to believe we've been heard in our desire to have some of the trees taken and make it a bigger space. And gonna go to you, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So just a couple of questions. The area that's a floodplain, that's a bunch of trees. Are those guys near an end of life, or like they're not young trees? So is that clump of trees?
And we heard they weren't significant.
They're not significant trees, but are they near, where are they in their lifespan?
I'll try and respond, but Adrian may want to jump in from the history of the site. We would be intending as part of the technical studies to go a little bit more detailed than previously to assess the tree condition. There are, as far as we know, no trees of significant value, but all trees obviously add value to our city and should be considered and carefully weighed whether we should remove or not. Adrian, do you have anything from the history of the concept plan?
Not really. I like you said, I think, when it was originally scoped as far as the concept planning, we did look at a high level at the trees. And I think, as noted, there's, some box elder and poplar type trees. There are a few larger spruce down in that forest as well. And I think, as we noted on the field trip, one of the things that we'll have to look at is as we move forward into design, we'll have to do some additional tree consultation just to see what the impact would be of surface and groundwater. And if you're going to end up killing trees as a result of design anyway, then that might influence, what would be done with those trees. We definitely know that that's a wet area, and I think it's probably sensitive enough that any significant construction could have some impacts that we just need to dig into a little bit more.
Okay. So the other question was, because from what I'm reading from the motion, the intention is just really to have a council workshop and let us provide some input before you go too far down the road. Because one of the challenges we have is that we'll say, well, we're just doing this, and then we go down the road and you go, now it's too late to make changes. And so somewhere in that gap, we just wanted to have council have a discussion about opportunities and just come to a consensus about this, is what I'm interpreting this to be. Is there an intention to do a council workshop now? I'm looking at anybody at this point, regardless of this motion, is there an intention to actually do a council workshop before the detailed design goes too far ahead?
Based on this conversation, yes.
Okay, so either way, we'll get that workshop done. Okay.
Even if the motion fails.
If the motion fails, I would commit to coming back and having a detailed discussion about based off the current concept plan, not looking at significant alterations or other options, based off that current plan, to come back to council and allow that discussion to happen. Yes, Mayor.
Okay. And so I realize that there's like a lot of pressure, Mike, for you to say don't bring forth the motion, but I actually am not totally confident in this design. And I know that often we don't get in the weeds, but the thing is that I don't remember, we've been on council for like what, 2 billion years now, Kathy? And we've never had to design a park of this magnitude. And so I know that as a special factor, specialness, uniqueness factor, this is something that it's like, I want to have a say in this and feel like we have been heard. And the challenge we had is at the workshop, the field trip came and we said stuff, and then yet the design came exactly the same. So if it passes or it doesn't pass, really we'll be able to achieve the same thing. But if we did have it pass, it would just simply be a confirmation from council that we'd want this, is how I'm interpreting it. Is that how you might interpret it, Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, but if it doesn't pass, I would just again caution that when we talk about the scope of the council discussion, it will be limited based on what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
If it passes, you could go back to first principles if you wanted to. That's ultimately in terms of the council decision.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So
One other quick question for you, Councillor Killick. The second motion says workshop and public engagement. Like, was that your intention, or you just wanted to have some of your thoughts heard into the current plan that we've already got a bunch of public, because the public engagement is what slows things down and costs a lot of money. And was that part of your intention, was to go back out to the public, even though we've already spent over $100,000 on public engagement on this park?
It was not my original intention, but I think when it was brought forward, public engagement specifically was brought forward by administration, it struck me as if we tweak this design, that there would be an opportunity to possibly, post it on Cultivate the Conversation for a couple of 3-4 weeks for any feedback or comments. I'm not envisioning workshops or post-it note sessions or any, but I'm looking at it that way because I don't think we're going to make a major change. As I go back to the language I used in my email, which was we want to make tweaks to the plan. And but as well, recognizing council is a body that represents our citizens, I didn't want to miss that step either. So I think there's that opportunity to be transparent and clear that here's some council input to a plan, and see what the residents think. I'd also reference back to page 19 in the original concept document that says it actually references, of all things, balancing hardscaping and softscaping and associated removal of trees. So, you know, we have had this discussion. I understand trees are very important. I would like to see trees utilized in a way that, rather than they're just a forest maybe for birds, that they're actually a value add for usage by residents, as I said, to sit under the shade, have picnic tables underneath them, have the ability that they actually add a feature to the park rather than are just an old growth stand that is left there and going to, you know, blow down eventually. So, and I also referenced some of the things that even in the original document, it said reference Bryant Park and Discovery Green Park. Those are the kind of things, when you look at the pictures that were included by administration in the document, that show, you know, people using the space, it being opened up, multi-use. Trees are a key feature of both of those designs. So, but again, on page 23, it says we want to create something that's unique and of bold design. And that's really what I want to make sure we have an opportunity. And I thought the best way to do that is to have a workshop, answer all of these questions, get them out on the table, and have an opportunity to just, again, make some of those tweaks to the current design.
Okay, I feel like we're slipping into debate a bit here, so. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
Just a question on the timing, and it's sorry, the longer we are talking about these kind of quasi questions, the more
Yeah,
questions
it's
come
fine.
up, right?
Yeah.
So if this motion passes and we're going to have a council workshop and it's specific around creating a new concept plan for Millennial Park, when would we have that council workshop? I think there's some reference to Q1 2024, or is it something earlier than that?
Originally, the estimate was Q3 of this year, and that's because the same folks who would be implicated in this are actually working on a lot of the public engagement and concept design for the amenities plan. And so there's a balance of capacity there that was originally driving the timeline.
So one of the risks that I referred to in one of my original questions. So I mean, we just lose capacity. So if this goes ahead, it's my understanding, we won't be able to do it till Q3. Then with everything else that's potentially, we're going to be looking at 2024. Then by the time we get anything else, we're going to be looking at the end of 2020. Like this will be, you guys started this in 2016. It's going to be.
I just got an email from Melissa. She's listening. She said, if a workshop is being considered for Millennial Park Council would like it to happen soon, it looks like March 28th or April 5th would be an option. She's looked at our calendars based on your calendar. So
2024.
I think that's cute. Thank you, Melissa. So we could probably get this done. Not a lot of prep work from your staff, just to listen to council. I think that's all you would need.
Well, but that's not what the motion is. The
No,
motion
I
would be,
agree.
the
Yep.
intent would be that we would actually go out and engage a consultant and bring the consultant back in and do the whole right from start.
Right. Well,
If I may, Mayor?
Yep.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Amanda. The timing was if we were to bring in a consultant and start from scratch to Mr. Fletcher's point of first principles, that would require significant work, and that is our team that is a little bit stretched in terms of community amenities and other priorities. If the intention was just to share intentions, tweaks, discuss phasing and costing at a very high level without a lot of need for drawings and facilitation support and that type of conversation, we could certainly do that on a much more expedited timeframe.
But that's not what the motion is, Matt.
I agree. Yep. Yeah. Okay, I think, Mr. Fletcher, here's what I'm thinking. If it depends, my vote will depend on how you answer this question. If we can get even those counselors that are interested, doesn't even have to be everyone. If people are fine with whatever, then they don't have to come. But if we can get Mike and I for sure, and whoever else is interested into a room either March 28th or April 5th with you, Amanda and Adrian or whoever, and say, this is what we want to see when the detailed design comes back. That way we don't even have to pause anything, because we could do that right away. The RFP goes out the day after and we have our say in the current concept. With that, if you say yes, then I'm going to vote no to his motion.
Yes, your worship, we can arrange.
But I think, Councillor Kelly, it's up to you what you want to do with the motion, but I think that is the solution to exactly what you want.
That has been my intention all along.
Okay.
Including going back to the day of the walk around and sending in written comments. I don't know if other councillors did, but I appreciate all input. But yes, if we can accomplish that some other way, I would definitely be open to that. The challenge I have is that we've tried to have that input before.
And you didn't feel heard.
And I didn't feel
Neither
that
did
that was received.
Yeah, I
And-
feel the same way. Yep.
So I just want to make sure we're not going back to have another input session and then see a concept plan that looks exactly the same.
Well, Councillor, what you'll see at that session is a concept plan that looks exactly like what you saw today.
Yes,
and
as a
those
starting
tweaked
point.
up. Yes, yes.
And then we tweak it from there. Yes.
Because I think it's really hard to envision what it will look like based on a picture on a concept map right now. Like half the trees that you're seeing are not old growth trees. They're new trees that were planted through the process that will provide the shade that you're talking about. So I think that even that kind of conversation would put your mind at rest. And so do you want to withdraw your motion? Actually, I haven't even accepted it, so.
With the commitment from Mr. Fletcher that we'll have a workshop with council to look at the concept plan and make tweaks to it, I can withdraw the motion.
I commit to you, we will have absolutely have a council workshop and that discussion will make the tweaks as we are able to, right? I mean, there are realities, as I'm sure you understand, in terms of environmental footprints and a bunch of other stuff, but that's detailed design discussion. Philosophically, in terms of the way you vision this and the way ahead, that's what we need to get to through the workshop. Absolutely.
I think the word council workshop has sparked Mr. LaFleur to put on his camera and put up his hand. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I've been listening. There's the word workshop has been misused, probably several dozen times today. A workshop, I'll just remind everyone, staff and council, according to the council policy, a workshop is for council to be educated. If the intention is the council will make changes, make decisions, make tweaks, that's fine. Council has all the power in the world to do that, but that should happen at a committee of the whole meeting. So I just so everybody is not expecting a workshop, because I don't think what you want to do is suitable for a workshop, but you can do it. Say if we call it committee of the whole. Just a reminder.
No, great. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My request is that the committee of the whole meeting, when it's called on March or April 5th, either be hybrid or April 5th. Because I'm back in St. Albert by April 5th. But if you want to hold it before then, just give me a virtual option because I'd really like to be at that special council meeting.
April 5th. April 5th. Yep.
Would the RFP be going out before April 5th, Amanda, if this never had come up?
Yeah, sorry, to Mayor Heron. Yes, we had intended to release the RFP by the end of January.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, we're just talking a couple of weeks now, so yeah. Okay. What's your intention, Councillor Killick?
Again, based on the discussion around having a committee of the whole meeting to provide input and feedback and possible tweaks on April 5th. I'll withdraw the motion, both motions,
Okay,
and hopefully we can still move forward with a plan this year.
I think that was most people's fear was the delay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Good conversation, as I thought it would be. Now we are on item number 11 on our agenda. Information request, notice of motion and announcements. Are you reading your notice of motion about the election signs today, Councillor Killick?
Yes, that was
Okay.
my intention.
Go ahead.
So notice notice of motion, sorry. Notice of my intention to bring forward the following motion for debate at the June 6th meeting, regular meeting of council, that administration bring the standing committee of the whole in 2023 proposed amendments to the existing bylaws that regulate election signage and or a new standalone bylaw to regulate election signage informed by both applicable jurisprudence and best practices in other municipalities regarding size, placement, and spacing of election signs with the intent of achieving greater public safety and reduced environmental impact.
Okay, so that one we're going to debate on June 6th.
Yep.
Okay.
And I just would like to say thank you to administration and Mr. LaFleur for helping me with the wording on that. And it has been my lifelong dream to read a council motion that has jurisprudence in it.
That's your lifelong dream. Awesome. Was that it for notices of motions, or did I forget any?
There was an information request by Councillor Killick.
Oh, which one was that?
And it was to do with the waste bylaw, implementing changes to the waste bylaw.
Oh, right. Do you remember that one?
I can email it to you.
I don't recall that, Cheryl. I apologize, but if was it something that was older?
I'm looking up. Is it in? Oh, Ken's on it. Okay. No? Who's an IR? Yeah, I don't see it either.
I just sent it to Councillor Killick. It came through the members site on February 27th.
Okay, maybe the member site hasn't been updated. Go ahead. Did you get the email?
So what would be required to implement changes to our waste bylaw that would be similar to those proposed by Edmonton to include
right, yeah.
apartments and condos for source separation by brown, green, and blue? This information would be background for upcoming notice of motion.
Thank you. And that's it then? Okay. Unless anyone has anything new, seeing none. And Councillor Jolly never did join us, did she? I did get an email saying she was going to be late, but not. Yeah, yeah.
No, she hasn't.
Okay, so I need a motion to go in camera for a dialogue with the city manager. Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
All right. The council move in camera to have a confidential dialogue with the CAO pursuant to section 24(1)(a) of FOIP.
Call for the vote. Voting is closed and that passes unanimously. Got to win. Who's the host of this meeting? The hostess with the most. Are you going to make me the host? Okay. All right, we will convene in council lounge.